Conor McGregor versus Nick Diaz. Two of the greatest fights ever, two of the highest grossing, most seen fights were Nate Diaz versus Conor McGregor. And although Nick Diaz hasn't been in UFC and he's had his problems and he lost the fight versus Anderson Silva at UFC 183, he wants to come back and we all want to see Conor McGregor versus Diaz. And Nick Diaz versus Conor McGregor would be an amazing fight. Now I want to ask you guys, the fans, if you think this fight is plausible, if it would ever happen. And we know that Nick Diaz fought at 170 pounds for most of his career. If you disregard that Anderson Silva fight where he fought at 185 pounds and had all that bad luck, he fought at 170 pounds. That's where he fought. And unless you look at one of his Strikeforce fights where he fought at 165 pounds, Nick Diaz was a welterweight. And Conor McGregor tried at welterweight. He had mixed reviews in his outing, lost one and won one. But the question remains, is Conor McGregor ever going to go into another quest for the welterweight championship? And that's what he was doing at 170 pounds. He was going for the title. And though he decided to go for the 155-pound belt first, I'm sure Conor McGregor still has his eyes on that title. And so does Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz never got his chance at becoming a clear 170-pound champion. He had his interim fights with Carlos Condit and George St. Pierre, but he never became the champ. And if he comes back, he's always ranked really highly in terms of fanfare and fan appeal. And the luster of the Diazes has never faded. So they're pretty young still. Nick's only 33 years old, and Conor McGregor's 28 years old. And we know Conor's style. He has tremendous left-hand power. He likes to land his strikes. He's got a finesse about it. And he's able to do it in such a way that confuses his opponent. And we always see his opponent on the floor, usually pretty fast. Now, that's his game plan. Conor McGregor would want to knock Nick Diaz out. And Nick Diaz has a great ground game, but he also has a tremendous striking game. And Nick Diaz likes to confuse his opponents. He likes to throw tremendous amount of strikes. He likes to show so many strikes. He's got a real great accuracy when he throws strikes, and that's really what throws his opponents off. So it'd be a guy like Conor McGregor who wants to get off early and land heavy shots versus a guy who wants to get in there, get in his face, confuse him, piss him off, and make him make mistakes, and at that point, start landing at such an uncontrollable pace that Conor McGregor would start seeing double. And that's the difference between these two guys. They both like to strike. Nick Diaz would be a favorite on the ground. He's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt. We all know about Nick Diaz on the ground. We know what he could do. We know that he's one of the only fighters to land a Gogo Pilata in Dream. That was one of the sickest submissions of all time. And we know that he likes to take the fight there, and we know that he likes to finish there. So he would have more ways to win Nick Diaz, and Conor McGregor would have the early on power. Now, in a 5-round fight, we would have to think that Nick Diaz would be the guy who would go into the deeper waters and persevere. We've seen Conor McGregor have problems going to later rounds, kind of turning away from his opponent, trying to gas some air. But then again, we know how shocking he is early on. So would Conor McGregor be able to land a shot early on, knock Nick Diaz out, or would Conor McGregor fail? Would Nick Diaz surprise us and do what his brother did and shock the world by either submitting or knocking out Conor McGregor? I'm going to ask you guys, the fans, I'm going to stay out of it. I don't think this fight's going to happen anytime soon, but I think it'd be an interesting matchup and one hell of a fight. Conor McGregor versus Nick Diaz would be phenomenal.